H.I.P, hobbies, interests, and passions. And why are we looking at this? Stay tuned and you'll find out. But first, I have to apologize that I am like over 4 hours late to get this podcast done. I had my mastermind group this morning, which inspired today's podcast. And after the and of course I had to start that. I had to be up at 2:00 in the morning to be online by 3. It finished, I don't know, like 8, I think it was, sometime after 8 a.m. my time. And then I had a business meeting with my business partner. And after that, I was exhausted. So I just went and crawled back into bed and ended up spending basically the whole day in bed. 1, it was cold. And 2, it was really comfy and snugly warm. And I just didn't want to get out. And my parents texted me to say they'd gotten home. And I said, well, I'm still in bed. Went back to bed. This is why. And I said, but I do need to get up and brave the cold because I'm hungry. But nope, that didn't happen. So we're going to look at why hobbies, interests, and passions are so important about learning about for our ancestors as well. And I'm going to share some of mine, and I have a list. So we spend a lot of time researching what our ancestors did for work, where they lived, who they married, and when their children were born. But how often do we stop and ask what they actually enjoyed doing? So today we're talking about H.I.P, hobbies, interests, and passions. These are the things that people chose to do because they enjoyed them, were curious about them, or simply couldn't imagine life without them. Yes, can't imagine life without chocolate, post-it notes, and genealogy and storytelling. Those are my passions. Hobbies can tell us wonderful things about someone's everyday life. Perhaps your grandfather spent hours woodworking in the shed. Your grandmother knitted, crocheted, quilted, painted, baked, gardened, collected something unusual, or loved doing crossword puzzles. Maybe someone in your family was always tinkering with cars, taking photographs, fishing, restoring furniture, playing cards, reading books, or making things with their hands. And then there are the interests. What subjects could they talk about for hours? Genealogy, storytelling. Perhaps they were fascinated by history. History is part of genealogy. You've got to know, when you're researching somebody, you've got to know what was going on at history at that point in time to help you find documents. And maybe they played a part in some historical event that took place. You're not going to know that unless you research the history. So perhaps they were fascinated by history, trains, birds, movies, music, travel, astronomy, family history, or anything else that sparked their curiosity. They may never have considered it a hobby. It was just something they simply loved learning about. I would say, let's see, history, yes. Trains, I enjoy steam train rides, I do. But it's not an interest. Birds, not really. Movies, yes, I definitely love movies. I love my music. I love to travel. I love family history. There's a whole bunch of stuff coming up. Trust me, I'm going to go down my list. And then we have passions. These are the things that light someone up, the activities and the causes they are willing to give their time, energy, enthusiasm to because they matter. Sometimes a passion becomes a career. Sometimes it remains something done purely for the joy of doing it. Think about how much these details can tell future generations about someone. Knowing great-granddad was a railway worker gives us one piece of his story. Discovering that he spent every spare moment growing roses, played the piano by ear, and never missed a Sunday crossword suddenly gives us a glimpse of the person behind the name. We should also be recording our own H.I.P. What do we love doing when nobody is paying attention, is paying you to do it? What are you endlessly curious about? What could you happily spend hours talking about, researching, creating, collecting, or experiencing? Those things are part of your family history too. So now I'm going to go down my list of stuff. It's long. It is. It is very long. You've already heard about me being a chocoholic. I'm a post-it note-aholic. I love my genealogy, whether I do it as a hobby for my own family, whether I do it as an interest because I keep learning, or whether it's a passion of mine. It goes across all three. Passion, yeah, I could easily sit up till 2-3 o'clock in the morning, and Brad used to come into my office and go, "You going to come to bed?" I go, "Why? What time is it?" The fact that he's gone to bed before me is unusual anyway. And he goes, "It's 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, or whatever it was." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, guess I should do that." But in the moment, I was following a hot lead in genealogy and just like, and even though I was feeling tired, it's like, no, I've got to get this done. I've got to find this thing, got to find it. And his timing was always perfect on that. I love board games. I love learning new board games. I love the classics, Monopoly, Scrabble, all the classic ones. I have a few here. I will read almost anything. I don't read horror. Don't like horror at all. So I don't even watch movies in horror. Did that once, never again. Some sci-fi and fantasy I will read. Others, no. But I will read just about any other genre that's out there. I'm not into comics, so I'm not into the anime books where it's all illustrated and things like that. I am not into the illustrated books. I want words on page. And if I can get the book and the audio at the same time and read them together, perfect. That is perfection. I especially love listening to biographies and memoirs, especially when the person who it is about is the one doing the narrating. Like I'm currently listening to Sam Neill's What I Didn't Tell You. I think that's what it's called. Hang on. Un momento. Get out of whatever. I don't even know what that was. Get out of there. Thank you. Go into Audible. Oh, Did I Ever Tell You This by Sam Neill? And he passed away, about a month ago, and he's doing the narration of his own book. And this is why the reason I love having people read their own stories and you get to hear it in their voice is because they put on the inflection that they want in the book. So you get to hear it how they want you to hear it. Carol Burnett, perfect example. She's even doing the Tarzan yell in the middle of the book. She had to do it because she didn't have any ID to prove that her check was her. This is back in the day writing checks, and she was in something like JCPenney's, Macy's, one of those big department stores. And she writes out a check for her purchase, and they wanted to see ID, and she didn't have her ID with her. And she goes, well, I'm Carol Burnett. And they go, prove it. She says, how do I prove it? And they said, do the Tarzan yell. That's how they proved that the check was hers. Just funny little things like that. Billy Crystal had a great one. I didn't realize that he was such a good, what do you call it? Doing different voices. And he would talk, and when he was talking about meeting people, he would switch to their voice. And it was absolutely amazing to listen to his book. Can't remember which book that was, but it's in my thing. I've listened to Rob Lowe's, Patrick Swayze, Melissa Gilbert, Martin Sheen and Emilio Estevez on their father-son book that they did together. Absolutely amazing. They actually did the movie The Way together. And so this was their story leading up to doing The Way, the story during The Way, and just beyond it. Fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Who else have I listened to? There's a whole bunch of them. I mean, I saw the other day in Audible, I have like 300 titles in my library, and about half of them are biographies and memoirs. Oh, Matt Riff, if you've ever heard of the comedian Matt Riff, listen to his one. That was hilarious. There's Dame Judi Dench, but she didn't actually read her book. They had somebody else read her parts, and they did it like an interview, like a very good friend of hers would interview her. She would give the question, she would answer the question, and then they would have somebody else read it. But they did, in the book, put in actual recordings of the sessions in there as well. The book about Lisa Marie Presley, that was a heartbreaking book to listen to. But her daughter had been asked by her mother to help her finish the book. And then, of course, she went and passed away. So they didn't get to do that collab together. But the daughter ended up doing the book, and they had Julia Roberts read the role of Lisa Marie Presley. But then they also inserted in there actual recordings with Lisa Marie Presley talking about different things. And her daughter reads her own parts in the book as they wrote it together. It's just fascinating stories out there. And this is why I love listening to memoirs and biographies so much, because you're getting a glimpse into other people's lives. So this is why I'm so passionate about people telling their story. And it doesn't matter how you tell a story. You hear parts of my story come out in all these podcasts, 2,571 podcasts. There's a bit of me in every single one of them. So I am recording my story as I go. But yeah, books, love books. That isn't even, I've got a few boxes of books still out in the garage. Yeah, I'm going to need at least another 3 bookcases this size to shelve them all. And I got rid of a ton before we left the States. I love to write, whether it's poems, whether it's just a piece of writing, like an essay or something like that, blogs, love writing them. Gotten into writing songs. and then using AI to do the voices and the music for them. It's basically a poem to music. That's all it is. I love to bake and cook. Get me in the kitchen. I love to experiment. When it comes to cooking, a recipe is the foundation. It's there as a suggestion. And then you start adding your little bits and pieces in. And I'll like open up my pantry and I'll just stand there and I'll wait for the ingredient to get up and slap me across the face, or have a little light shine down on it, however it wants to appear to me, to say, use me. That's how I cook. Baking, I'm a little more follow the recipe type of person when it comes to baking, but occasionally I'll make some tweaks. But not as much as I do when I'm cooking. Walking. I love to go walking. I haven't done any for a while. In fact, I haven't been walking since Zeffie passed. Unless I was I've done walking around like shops, the towns and that sort of stuff, but not actually gone out for I did with Mum and Dad a couple of times when I was living with them until I found this place. Travel. Love to travel. Love to explore cultures. That's part of my interest, is exploring different cultures. And we've been truly blessed. My brothers and I have been truly blessed by the fact that our parents taught us to be travelers within our own country, to blend in, to learn the culture of the area, and to appreciate other people's cultures. They kind of said, that if you want to be a tourist, you just go do this. If you want to be a traveler and learn about the culture, you've got to be a traveler to do that. You've got to blend in with the locals. So I love doing that sort of stuff. Knitting and crocheting, love that. I've got like 3 blankets on the go at the moment that I'm all crocheting. They're all different multicolored things and really cool. Let's see what else is on here. Watching sports, although I haven't done that much since I've been back, since Brad passed. I haven't done a lot of watching sports, and he's been gone he'll be 9 years next month. Although I have watched some cricket since I got back to New Zealand, which is sort of like, this feels really good. I missed the All Blacks play though. Gotta watch the All Blacks. Love air shows. Warbird aircraft. I absolutely love going and watching air shows where the warbirds are flying. And these are the planes from yesteryear, back from ending of World War I and World War II. Love watching those warbirds. And it was at an air show in February of 1981 at RNZAF base Ohakia. They had an open day air show thing there that I decided I was going to join the Air Force as a pilot, until I found out that women couldn't be pilots in the Air Force. So I wrote the Defense Department a letter asking them why women could not be pilots in the Air Force. They sent me back this beautifully written letter. There was about 4 or 5 paragraphs on there. The only sentence I remember from that, I don't have a copy of that letter. I wish I kept it. The only sentence from that entire letter of 4 to 5 paragraphs I remember is, it said, there are some things we have to limit the woman in. That's the only sentence I remember from that letter. But I still joined the Air Force as a publication. I was going to go in as an accountant because I enjoyed accounting at school. And then the recruiting officer saw my all my library awards and stuff, being a school librarian and things. And in the schools in New Zealand, you volunteer to work in the libraries. And you get to learn the library system and everything else. It's really cool. Fixing books, entering new books into the system, doing the catalog cards, did all of that. Covered books, did it all. Check books in, check books out, put them back on the shelf, clean the shelves, tidy the shelves, did all that. And so he's looking at this and he goes, he says, would you like to become a publication specialist? And I go, what's that? He goes, it's an American term, an American term for librarian. I went, okay. Like, I love books. Why not? And so I became a publication specialist in the Royal New Zealand Air Force. And then my last 2 years was spent in publications production, where we actually created the manuals for the Air Force and did the amendments to go in them and that sort of stuff. And that's where I learned desktop publishing and fell in love with that and proofreading. Although I will say this, it's been, I got out in 1990, I got out of the Air Force. And so that's 36 years ago. And I'm still not back to my top reading speed because I keep proofreading the books. Love animals. I had cats growing up. When I moved to the States with Brad, it was dogs. I love live theater. Little unknown fact about me is that when I was 16, I was in a play, 15 or 16, I was in the high school. I did a lot with choir and theater in high school, but I was in the school play for that year, and I had to play a 55-year-old male. And when I was in full costume and makeup, when we're doing dress rehearsals and stuff, I would walk around the school as this 55-year-old man. The number of teachers that would stop me and ask if they could help. Can I help you with something? Yes. So that's how good my costume and makeup was. And I had short hair back then too. So you heard I was in the military for 6 years. Absolutely loved that. Movies are like, never ask me what my favorite book is because I can't tell you. I have so many of them across different genres. Movies, same thing. Although I am a huge James Bond fan, love the James Bond movie. The first James Bond movie I ever saw was in 1981. Same year I decided I was going to join the Air Force. Yes, there's a little story there behind that. I was on my very first date with my very first boyfriend, and we went and saw For Your Eyes Only, and Roger Moore was playing James Bond. After that, I found out that James Bond was a whole slew of movies, and started watching them, fell in love with Sean Connery, and he is my only James Bond ever. Yep. The other ones do really good jobs, but Sean Connery will always be my James Bond, even though he wasn't the first one I saw. So every November 1st, except for last November, because I don't have a DVD player yet or a Blu-ray player, so I can't play and you say, well, just go buy one. Yeah, I've got to find one that's multi-regional, because if I would go out and get a regular DVD and Blu-ray player, I can't play any of my DVDs and Blu-rays on a DVD player here in New Zealand, because I need to get one that is multi-regional. And so November 1st, I start with Dr. No, go all the way through the 25 movies up to No Time to Die, which is the last James Bond movie that came out under the James Bond franchise. And then I watch Casino Royale with David Niven from 1967, which is a spoof of the previous movies, of James Bond movies that had come out. And then I watch Never Say Never Again, which came out in, I want to say 86, with Sean Connery. Reviving the role, because it was a remake of the movie of Thunderball, and they did it under the thing. And Sean Connery's wife named the movie because he said he would never, after he finished, after he came back after George Lazenby had done the one movie, then Sean Connery came back to one more movie and he was done. And he said he was never going to play James Bond again. And his wife said, and when he agreed to do this one on the remake of Thunderball, but under the name of Never, I don't know what they were going to call it at the time, but his wife says Never Say Never. And that became the title of the movie. And she's actually in the credits for naming the movie. Just a little unknown fact. And then I finish my James Bond fest with Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. And people go, what? That's not even a James Bond movie. But Ian Fleming happens to be the author behind the 3 books. It was a trilogy. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang was a trilogy. He wrote the 3 books. He died before they got published, so he never got to see them published, and he never got to see the movie that was made. And that's the one tie-in to James Bond. The second tie-in is Desmond Llewellyn, who played Q in 17 James Bond movies out of the 25, is in the movie as Coggins, who is the owner of the junkyard that has the car there that the kids find and want their dad to purchase. And then number 3 is the guy that plays Goldfinger in the movie Goldfinger, is in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang as the Baron. So there is tie-ins to James Bond, that movie, and the fact that he wrote the book and didn't get to see the books published. This just seems like a good way to end a James Bond fest. Then on December the 1st, and again, didn't get to do this last year, I start my holiday fest, and the first movie I watch on December 1st every year is National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. And my holiday fest ends on the 1st of January with Trading Places. So and then I have all these holiday movies in between. The 28th of December, we watch Legally Blonde, only because after watching it like 1,001 times, my husband suddenly realized, and I didn't even recognize it as well until he pointed it out, that the scene where Al and Warner have the breakup, the restaurant they are sitting in is the restaurant where Brad and I got married, and the table that they are sitting at is on the spot where Brad and I stood and got married on the 28th of December, 1998. So we're coming up for 28 years this year. Yeah, 28 years. June 6th, watch The Longest Day because it's about the invasion of Normandy. And then on Brad's birthday, and also on December 28th, and a couple of days in between, it just comes and goes, I will either watch the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the Hobbit trilogy, one of the Star Wars trilogies out of either the original 3 movies that came out or the next 3 movies that came out. I will watch those, do a trilogy on those. So I have little things throughout the year with the movies and stuff, but I love watching movies. I love watching movies. Scrapbooking is another favorite hobby of mine. Designing and creating cards. I'm in Canva a few times a week designing greeting cards and things like that. I'm eventually going to get them up onto like Etsy so people can buy the designs. Learning with AI imaging and creation and that, creating stuff with AI imagery, which is a lot of fun, I love traveling. So part of my traveling was living in an RV for, I had the RV for 5 years, but I ended up living in it for 3 years out of that 5 and tripping around. Love music. The 80s is my jam. I was brought up on 60s and 70s music, even heard some big band music, which I absolutely love. But the 80s, that's my jam. I couldn't even tell you who most of the famous singers are today or what songs they sing. Couldn't tell you. But ask me about the 80s, we got it. First concert I ever saw was Cliff Richard, who is a British entertainer that's been entertaining the world since 1959. Yeah, 1959. And he's still selling out concerts. He was just recently in New Zealand just after I arrived in New Zealand. Had I known that, I would have bought a ticket and gone and watched the concert. But his concerts sell out. Still selling out, and he's still doing world tours, and he's in his 80s. Another great concert I went and saw was U2 with BB King. So U2 came over here. We saw them at one of the football stadium, at the rugby stadium in Wellington. Not the one they use now, but an older one. Can't remember what they call it. We had to walk a long way to that. Because it was a little way out of it was in the central business district. We took the bus to where we could, and then we had to walk a long way to get there. But it was a great concert, and BB King was there. And U2 came out, did their thing, then they brought BB King out, he did his thing, and then U2 and BB King did a joint thing together, and then it went back to U2. Awesome concert. Let's see, what else have we got in here? I was a gymnastics coach for 10 years from the age of 13 to 23 until I developed tendonitis in my wrist, and it made it impossible for me to catch kids. And I was so pissed off, I went cold turkey. Now, I had started doing judge certifications, so I could have actually stayed involved with gymnastics and continued with my judging certifications to do badges for the recreational gymnastics up into judging competition and stuff. But I chose a different route and just went cold turkey on gymnastics for about 10 years before I actually watched it. But I wouldn't watch it, and it was one of my favorite sports to watch was gymnastics, and wouldn't watch it. And I come back in and we've got springing floorboards and, springing mats. And I'm sort of like, what the heck is this? And yeah, it was very different. 10-year drought on gymnastics. And I come back and I'm like looking at this and I'm like in my head judging the points and stuff. But the whole scoring system had changed. They start here and then they deduct. And I'm like, okay, this is new. This is different. And how the hell are they getting that height and those jumps? Oh, the floor's got springs in it. Okay. Very different. So yeah, come back to a whole new world of gymnastics. And now I just sit back, relax, and enjoy watching it. Let's see. At the age of 50, I became a widow and been learning I'm still, almost 9 years later, still discovering who I am. But one of the biggest challenges I had in becoming a widow, and not by choice, was for the first time in my life, I was by myself. I was living by myself. I wasn't living with anybody else. I wasn't in barracks or anything like that. I was truly living by myself. So now I had to start learning to do stuff that Brad used to do. I still don't have anybody that I can call up and say, can you fix my computer? Because I would just go to Brad with my laptop and go, please fix. Or I would call him into the office and have him sit down and fix whatever the issue is. I've had to learn to do that myself. So I've learned that, pressure creates diamonds, so that's good. Diamonds are sparkly, so that's even better. But even just like normal daily household things, we shared the chores together in the house, and all of a sudden I'm now having to clean the whole house. One thing I'm still struggling with to this day is laundry. Brad used to go throw the laundry into the washing machine, go put it in the dryer, bring it to me, and I'd sit there, fold it, put it away. And now I'm sort of like looking at these overflowing baskets that I have in my room from the laundry and going, oh, well, I guess I got to go do some laundry. But the cool part here about New Zealand that they don't do a lot in the States is once it comes out of the washing machine, I go outside, I hang it up on the clothesline outside, and it gets this fresh air blowing, this fresh sea air blowing through the laundry, drying it and all that. Although it has been a little cold lately and a little wet, so I have drying racks inside the house that I put all the laundry on. So, yeah. But I have enjoyed hanging the laundry outside. I just have to remember to go get it before it starts getting damp with the night and stuff. I love learning about natural healing methods and things. I only go to the doctor when absolutely required. And I tell the doctor when I'm interviewing the doctor to see if I want them to be my primary care, is that I don't take medication unless absolutely required. I got myself off. I was put on after Brad's first round with cancer back and this was in June of 2009. After that, all that stuff with cancer had finished, my body lost the adrenaline that it had been running on. And so I was suddenly very tired. I was having issues with my digestive system and all of that. And my blood pressure went through the roof. And and so, of course, visit to the doctor, had the endoscope thing done, discovered I had high blood pressure. So I was put immediately onto blood pressure meds. And the doctor wasn't even going to argue with me on that. He said, these are required, you're taking them, and we're not going to argue. And he handed Brad the prescription because he knew if he handed it to me, I'd probably screw it up and throw it out. And told Brad, go directly to the pharmacy, pick these up, and she's to take one as soon as you get them. So that's blood pressure. And then the gastroenterologist said I can't remember what it was. I had something going on in my stomach. And he put me on the little purple pills, the Nexium pills, and said that I would have to start taking those. And I said, well, how long am I going to take these for? And he said, well, here's a list of foods that you can't eat anymore. And one at the top, right at the top said chocolate. And I said, that's not going to work. He goes, well, it's not. I said, I can't give up chocolate. I said, I'm addicted to chocolate. I am a chocoholic. And he says, then you're going to be on these pills for the rest of your life. Blood pressure medication was discontinued 18 months later because I was keeping my blood pressure under control and have never been back on blood pressure meds. Never had an issue with blood pressure. I have a cuff at the house that runs on batteries that I can check my blood pressure if I feel like it's going up. And then I've got a routine of things that I do to help lower it. And then with the Nexium thing, I was off that like 6 months later, I think it was. I was off it, a year later. I was off it a year later. The symptoms in my stomach went away and I learned to manage it with ginger and peppermint. And it's never been a problem since. So this guy who told me I'd be on Nexium for life, it lasted a year. And then I had a really good doctor in San Diego who I went in and saw, and she was a DO, not an MD. So doctor of obstetrics, who do a little more into acupuncture and chiropractic and natural healing methods and essential oils and all of that sort of stuff, do actual training in that. And I sat down with her and I said, right, the first thing you need to know about me is that I don't take medication unless absolutely required. She says, well, I don't prescribe it unless absolutely required. I said, then we're going to get on great. We would rather find an alternative to putting on medications instead of over-medicating, getting onto things. Oh, and then another issue that I had when I moved out to California, another issue I had was at the changing of seasons. So in spring and autumn of every year in the States, I would get vertigo. And I would end up getting an ear infection that would very quickly turn to vertigo. And I got put on the Z-Packs for antibiotics. And I hated taking them. And the last time I took them was, 2012 was the last time, because I got introduced to essential oils. And I found this wonderful little bottle that was called is either tea tree oil or melaleuca. It's the same thing. And all I needed to, and I heard this story about somebody helping somebody who had a baby with an ear infection, and they took a cotton ball, pulled it apart, created a little tip on the top, put a drop of melaleuca on that, and stuck it just inside the ear hole and just molded it to the outside of the shells to hold it in place for about 30 minutes, and the ear infection was gone. And I'm like, I'm doing that. So I did that the next time I felt it coming on, and have never taken another Z-Pack at all since. So love that thing. And so the last time I was on the Z-Pack was November of 2012, because it was the following year that I met somebody who had essential oils and learned about this little trick with melaleuca. And so that's what I use. Let's see, I think that's everything on my list. Oh, and in part of my learning when I was in the States, I went to community college and got my 3 associate degrees at once. There was hotel management, restaurant management, and hospitality management. And then this one I added on because somebody mentioned it, is that they collect magnets when they go traveling. When I go traveling, I get a magnet of the ship if I'm on a cruise. I get a magnet of the different places that we visit that has something on there that reminds me of something that we did. And I also get postcards. And I try to get postcards that don't have any writing on the picture on the front, because a lot of times postcard pictures are better than what I can take. And so this here, because I haven't got my filing cabinets behind me in order yet, but these are my magnets. It's very heavy. So I collect magnets. There's some of them in there. Yeah. This was, which one was this one? This was the very first cruise ship I went on. Nope, hang on. I need a magnifying glass. Can't read the name on the ship. And weirdly enough, it doesn't have it on the front. But it cost me $2.99. There's the prices on the back. It's one of the Norwegian. Thank goodness for phones. Oh, that is the first ship I went on. This is Norwegian Star. This is the very first cruise I ever took, was on this ship, Norwegian Star, and we did the inside passage for Alaska. And then we did that in September of 2009. We were the last sailing of the year, had an absolute blast, and fell in love with cruising. So that was from the very first cruise that I did. Yeah. Alaska. Yep. Drop. Long drops and all. So yeah, there's a lot of different things that I have in there. And then this is the big one though. This is the one that has, I don't know how much you're going to be able to see of this one. But there's Williamsburg in there, Roatan, Carnival Horizon. It was the second cruise I took after Brad passed. Vegas, the domes in Milwaukee are in there. There's a whole bunch in there. You can see it's full and it's very heavy. So yeah, I collect magnets. When I go traveling, I can collect magnets of places I have been to. There's only one ship that I do not have a magnet for, and that is the Armour Waterway Legro, because they didn't have magnets for the river cruises, which I was disappointed. And I didn't get to keep my room key. But I have my room key from every ship I've been on except the Armour Waterways Legro, because you hand over your passport, they give you your room key. You want your room key back, you want your passport back, you got to give them the room key. So, but I've got, so that's the only one that I'm missing a key for, a room key for, and the magnet for. But apart from that, done all of them else. So that is just a little taste. So what are your HIPs? What are your hobbies? What are your interests? What are you passionate about? If you weren't so here's a way to work out what your passion is. If you do something for free because you love it, that's your passion. Yeah, that's something you're passionate about. So your family tree challenge today is choose someone in your family and discover their HIP. What are their hobbies? What interests them? What were they passionate about? Ask other relatives what they remember. Look through photographs for clues. Check old letters, diaries, newspaper articles, club memberships, collections, handmade items, awards, and keepsakes. Then make sure you record the stories behind what you discover, as well as documenting your own HIPs. Dates and documents tell us when someone lived. Their hobbies, interests, and passions help us discover who they really were. And with that, and let us know in the comments below some of the hobbies, interests, and passions that you find out about. And with that, we are out of here. Go out, have a super fantastic sparkling evening, and we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Well, actually, I might be late, because depending on the weather, I may be going into Wellington tomorrow. I'm not sure. But I will be in downtown Waikanae tomorrow, because it's my normal day to go do all my errands and everything else. So I will be late tomorrow, but not too late, because I've got to be home before 3 o'clock so I don't get charged for the after 3 p.m. trains and buses. It's good, because between 9 and 3 you can travel on the system and pay the off-peak hours. But once you hit that 3 o'clock mark, the rate goes up. So I will be home by 3 o'clock, which will be 9 p.m. Pacific time. So sometime before then, we'll be on. Have a super fantastic sparkling evening. Hei konera.